Hit me.
This technology is going to change the world. This is the future. And you're afraid of it.
Do you remember when CGI looked like this? Or this? Or even this?
This is not good.
Back in the 1990s, computer-generated imagery developed dramatically, coming closer to its ultimate goal, the reproduction of the photoreal. Before then, CGI was used more sporadically. The first time audiences saw live-action photography combined with digital imagery was in Westworld, way back in 1973, when the camera took on the point of view of Yul Brynner, playing a robotic version of his character from the Magnificent Seven. The first fully three-dimensional CGI sequence appeared in Westworld's sequel, Future World, 2 years later.
Games, I'll give you games.
The following decade saw early three-dimensional sequences in Tron, Young Sherlock Holmes,
Shoot, Alex!
and The Last Starfighter. Then in 1987, Daniel and Nadia Thalmann directed Rendezvous in Montreal.
All right, sweetheart. I love you.
One of the first films to be made entirely in three-dimensional CGI. It looks weird, at least by today's standards, but it's thanks to breakthroughs like this that the technology is now able to digitally de-age and even exhume actors like
Hope,
Carrie Fisher, Peter Cushing, and Ian Holm. So, thanks for that. CGI really hit its stride in the 1990s, becoming more widely adopted in films such as Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, and The Matrix. In each case, CGI is seamlessly interwoven with real-world characters and objects. Despite its flaws, the aesthetics of 90s CGI quickly became synonymous with science fiction. It allowed filmmakers to bring to life things that were impossible previously, and prompted audiences to reflect on our attitudes towards technology and the existential threat it might pose. So, what can CGI tell us about ourselves?
Scanning dyslexia prosthesis implant.
Johnny Mnemonic is a B-movie in spirit. Although it came out in 1995, it looks like an 80s sci-fi thriller, emulating such classics as Blade Runner, Akira, and Total Recall.
Hit me.
It was not a hit. In fact, with its combination of practical effects and early rudimentary CGI, Johnny Mnemonic exists in a sort of liminal space. Not quite as high concept as its 80s genre counterparts, but not as slick or as stylized as something like The Matrix. In the film, human augmentation and body modification have become part of everyday life, enabling people to physically adapt to the demands of a rapidly developing technocratic future. Keanu Reeves plays Johnny, a data courier who transports information in a 320 gigabyte memory drive installed in his head, creating a literal extension of his memory. But this technological enhancement comes at a cost. Many of the characters in the film suffer from a side effect of cybernetic enhancement called nerve attenuation syndrome. And what causes it?
The world causes it. This causes it.
This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves. Technological fucking civilization. But we still have all this shit because we can't live without it.
Johnny Mnemonic depicts a society that has become totally dependent on technology. In their over-reliance, the characters give away a part of themselves to technology, alienating that part of themselves in the process.
That son of a bitch doesn't have one natural bone left in his body.
We see this, albeit in a less direct way, in a phenomenon called
digital amnesia. Take a look.
Do you find yourself reaching for Google for things that you used to be able to remember?
Let me see.
I think the answer might be yes then.
Where we forget information that we trust a device to remember for us. Google essentially becomes our memory. But there's another place the characters in Johnny Mnemonic can escape to, and it's here that CGI comes into play. This is the internet in the year 2021. The CG-enhanced VR sequences in the film allow us to adopt Johnny's point of view as he navigates this new three-dimensional manifestation of the internet.
Command terminated.
It's worth noting that when the film was released, the internet was still a fairly novel idea. It would be another year until the essayist John Perry Barlow published his Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace, in which he refers to cyberspace as a new home of mind, where governments of the industrial world, that he called weary giants of flesh and steel, were not welcome and had no sovereignty.
Get ready. Send it out.
Things haven't quite turned out like that, but there was once a time where the internet had the potential to become a new level playing field, a sort of cyberspace utopia where old, outmoded hierarchies were redundant. Johnny Mnemonic explores this dichotomy. On the one hand, Johnny is able to access a vast new network of information.
What are you doing?
Making a long-distance phone call.
But on the other, the technology he utilizes creates a sort of psychological displacement of the self, as Johnny and the other characters entrust more of themselves to it. But what if VR technology could be instead used to save us?
Okay, here we go.
In 1992's The Lawnmower Man, Pierce Brosnan plays a scientist who experiments on Job.
Is that my hand?
To expand his intelligence through virtual reality. It's like a really intense e-learning course with a lot more lycra and UV lights. Oh, and Job's a gardener, which explains the title.
His mind is like a clean, hungry sponge. Synaptic activity has increased 400% in less than a month.
The CGI in The Lawnmower Man looks like a PS1 cutscene.
Lawnmower Man's in your head now, Jake.
Closer to something like Rendezvous in Montreal. All the characters and objects are awkwardly animated and rendered with limited textures. They were actually made by a visual effects house called Angel Studios, which would go on to become Rockstar San Diego, the developers behind the Rage game engine used for both the Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto series.
Battlefield simulation engaged.
In both Johnny Mnemonic and The Lawnmower Man, online space and the virtual experience of the internet is gamified, framing the web, as well as VR, as a fringe outsider technology. Dr. Angelo's experiments work, and Job's intelligence develops, but he becomes increasingly reliant on the virtual reality software.
This universe is mine. I am God here.
So much so that by the end of the film, he passes his consciousness into the software, transcending his bodily form, what he calls entering into the neural net.
Once I've entered the neural net, my birth cry will be the sound of every phone on this planet ringing in unison.
As in Johnny Mnemonic, CGI is used here for VR sequences, but as Job's powers grow, he's able to manipulate matter in the real world the same way he can in the virtual one. So he uses his powers to take revenge on anybody who has wronged him in the past. The film's blend of CGI and low-budget practical effects give it a high camp, unmistakably pre-millennium tone. But technology in The Lawnmower Man is ultimately a corrupting tool, fulfilling the desires of its characters for better and, more often, for worse. It remains a cautionary tale of a volatile emergent technology and its corrupting power over the people who wield it for their own gain.
They say ignorance is bliss. For the first time in my life, I agree.
Like The Matrix, 1999's The 13th Floor explores the simulation hypothesis, a theory that suggests that a more advanced being, civilization, or technology could have simulated our version of reality. In the film, a scientist has developed a fully realized virtual reality populated by sentient human characters who are unaware that they live in a simulation of 1937 Los Angeles inside a computer.
Saying that there's another world on top of this one?
The scientist is murdered, and his assistant, Douglas Hall, goes looking for answers in the real world, present-day 1999, in which, crucially, he doesn't have a mustache. Following up on a lead in the murder case, Hall drives out into the desert until, to his surprise, he reaches the edge of his own universe, discovering that he is also living inside a simulation. At the end of the film, Hall escapes his 1990 simulation and enters the real present day in the year 2024. Just as he wakes up to a CGI rendered vista, the screen cuts to black, breaking the fourth wall and acknowledging to the audience that we too have been watching a simulation.
I don't know, I just had this funny feeling that we met before.
In The 13th Floor, each layer of reality is revealed to be inauthentic, a creation containing codes and signifiers, such as facial hair, familiar to its subject. If humans were capable of this level of creation, then our own surroundings could, by this logic, be the creation of a higher intelligence.
Preparing user for download into simulation.
Here, virtual worlds appear like layers of a dream. And much like a dream, the film asks whether the fabric of reality within is as concrete and as reliable as we understand it, or if it's malleable, capable of being bent to the whims of the individual through new technologies.
Hey, what'd you do to the world?
Turned it off.
Each of these films contains a warning to the viewer that in the pursuit of the development of digital technology, humanity stands to lose as much as it gains.
Download complete. Connection terminated.
Yet, when we see virtual reality on screen in the 90s, we see it realized using, budget-dependent, state-of-the-art technology, the product of a new, burgeoning digital frontier that would go on to change cinema forever. Encounters with the bizarre and uncanny in 90s sci-fi are commonplace. But ironically, as an important stepping stone in the progress towards automated photorealism, they exist here to heighten the everyday, reforming the future societal landscapes they inhabit, asking audiences to decide for themselves their place within it. In a world increasingly capable of bringing to life impossible things, what might we use the latest advances in technology to achieve? And who will gain most from the breakthroughs of tomorrow?
You did this! All this power is meant to be in the hands of one person.
You're wrong. You need to be led, just like everyone else. It's a basic need.
This technology is meant to expand human communication, but you're not even human anymore!